you were looking for the talk about the border, you're in the right place. If you weren't looking for that talk, you're staying. Part of we both worked in very different areas of stuff on the border. It's really important to remember those. It's really important to think about the things that we don't hear on the news, which is when people get deported. We hear a lot about, what are immigrants doing in the U.S. and where are they working, or are they going to school, and this they, and what are they doing? But when there's a raid at a workplace, or when people are caught in the desert and they're sent back, we know very little about that. So it's kind of something to get a glimpse of what that looks like on the Mexico side. It's a really depressing situation to deal with day after day. So I really appreciate Maryada for sharing kind of her views of that, because it's not something you hear a lot about. I'll be talking a little bit about what happened on the United States side of the border in southern Arizona. So it's a huge desert. Has anybody been to kind of that area, Sonoran Desert, so Tucson, Phoenix, a few people. So the summer, it's insanely hot. It gets to 120 degrees easily during the day. And if you're right at ground level, 130, 140 degrees where the ground kind of absorbs the heat. And just to kind of put that into perspective, I'll talk about the water, but when you put a jug of water on the ground in the desert, that water is going to be 120, 130 degrees. So when a person finds this water, it's not like a lemonade stand where there's ice in a cup and it's a refreshing drink. I mean, this is sort of like the last thing you want to drink is a really hot drink of water, and that's sort of what that looks like if you think about it. And so it's a really very hostile region. It's in the day, in the summer it's incredibly hot. In the winter it's really cold. Daytime might be 50 or 60 degrees, but at nighttime it will drop below freezing easily. And if it rains or something like that, and you get wet, I mean, it's just there's no way your body can really cope with those kinds of extreme elements. So that's sort of the place that we're working in. And for those of you that saw the movie, The 800-Mile Wall, I think it does a good job of giving some good visualizing of what that desert looks like. I came out of college in 2004 in Tucson. I graduated from the University of Arizona. And I thought my first summer out of college, I was going to join the Peace Corps and go overseas to someplace far away and help people somewhere. That was just sort of what naturally came to my mind. And as I finished my final semester, my spring semester, I started hearing about this stuff in the border. And it had been going on, but I think when I was in college, I was really focused on my campus. So I didn't really pay a lot of attention to even things that were happening 20 miles away. But as I got towards the end, I started thinking more about what's going on in Tucson and southern Arizona. And I started hearing about this sort of growing human rights issue of people crossing the desert and people dying during that journey. And I heard there was this group that was going out into the desert and they were going to be camping. They were setting up a camp and they were going to try and do something about the deaths that were happening more and more on a regular basis. I thought, well, I was an Eagle Scout. I like to camp. I had a truck. It's kind of this Arizona kid. I said, yeah, right on. I'll go out to the desert and camp. That sounds pretty sweet. So that's kind of what got me into it. The first event I went to was this kickoff event for No More Deaths, and it was in May of 2004, and it's what this photo is here. And it was two marches that converged on the border, one from the U.S. side and one from the Mexico side, and all the people from the U.S. crossed over into Mexico and had all these crosses, and they hung them up along the wall. And these were representing the people who had this is in 2004, so the known deaths at that time, which there was already over 1,000. We didn't know the names of people. Most of them were unknown, desconocido, but we knew that there was remains found. And so each of these crosses had either the person's name or it just said unknown on it. And we hung these up, and it took up a couple hundred yards of, you can see, 2 layers very close together along the border while we hung all these up. And so that was my first thing, and I was sort of an independent journalist, so I was there mainly taking pictures, but I was starting to feel like, wow, this is a really important issue. So the next thing I did is I went out to this camp that I heard, was a journalist just to kind of see what was going on. And so I met the first group of volunteers, and this is a friend, Holly, and we went out looking every day what we do from the camp. We stay there overnight. In the morning, we get up early before it gets hot. And back then, we were just as lost as anybody. So we would just kind of drive to random places and hike and look for people that were lost or left behind or needed help, look for migrants. A lot of times we didn't really find anybody. So what we did is we picked up trash. And so my very first experience with this organization was picking up trash, and oddly, and I'll tell you about this littering ticket, but it was on a wildlife refuge, and this picking up trash we were doing was on this wildlife refuge years before I got the ticket, so it's kind of ironic that I started off doing humanitarian work, cleaning up the desert. And that was a lot of what we did, because a lot of water bottles get left behind, or people leave clothes or their backpacks and stuff like that. And so we just try to keep cleaning up things as we can as we go along. This was what our camp looked like in the desert. It was just literally kind of like a swap meet style tent thing. We had a green cross on it, and that was our shade in the middle of the day. Right now it's probably 115 degrees. We had a little RV trailer thing next to it that we could store some stuff in that would be out of the weather. But this is high-tech humanitarian aid right here. The camp has no running water. We have to bring in water. It has no electricity, no bathrooms, no plumbing, nothing. It's just like a remote desert camp, and that was kind of our home over the summer. This was one of our faithful trucks. It's not mine, but it's going to be retired, I think, after this summer. It's been beat to hell. But faithful Dodge Ram 4-wheel drive pickup, and that truck has saved many lives. A lot of times when we come across, even my first weekend out, we were picking up trash, but the next day we did come across individuals who were just sitting on the side of the road. They were with a larger group of people who had come across the border together, and these two guys were in their late 40s, early 50s, and just couldn't keep up. And so the smuggler, the guide, said, look, just sit by this road and maybe someone will come by and pick you up. And that happened to be us. And that's pretty common. People just sort of find the road and wait. And some people we'll find people in varying states of consciousness. So some people will already be unconscious. We literally have to call in with a GPS and tell a helicopter, land right here, and we have people air backed out. Other people we can put into a vehicle and just get out. We have to meet an ambulance because ambulances can't go on the 4-wheel drive roads, so we'll transport people to ambulances and stuff like that. This is a picture from one of our alternative spring breaks. So college students will come and spend their spring break week with No More Deaths. This is kind of what it looks like when we put out water. We have pretty good maps of trails that migrants will follow, and so we'll put here 40 or 50 gallons of water in one spot, and then we'll come back and check on it in a few days. And if it's a trail that has a lot of people, maybe all that water's been taken. And if it's a trail with not so many people, maybe just a few gallons is taken. But we always note that. It's kind of a really scientific thing, so we can see where the most people are going, and those are the areas that we try to be most present in. And that way, if someone does get left behind or lost or whatever, we have a better chance of finding them. So these are some students from University of Washington that came out a couple spring breaks ago. Oh yeah, and really quick, this is what we call a cattle tank. This one's not that bad. Some of them are super green and gross. But we put the water so people will find clean drinking water first. Because if they drink this is just full of cows are literally defecating. I mean, they live in this water, so if you drink that water, you'll get giardia or other weird bacteria and immediately become sick, and that dehydrates you faster. So that's kind of a big issue is as people are crossing, they may find natural water, but it's really contaminated. So we try to put our water in places before someone would drink something that's already out there. This was also on a spring break when this is kind of doing field medic stuff. So we're both trained as wilderness first responders, which is sort of like an EMT. Someone would work with an ambulance, but if you're in the backcountry, you don't have an ambulance. So you have to kind of carry everything with you and improvise a lot. So we learned to do a lot of that kind of first